My name's Neil Lazarus. I'm a keynote speaker and I work around the world explaining about Israel. I speak to over 30,000 people a year in around 5 different countries. The image of Israel seems to be getting worse and worse. We are going to be showing you in this video how to answer some of those questions that we all face. Israel is an apartheid state, the fence, the wall, massacres in Gaza. We're going to show you how to answer very quickly, very easily, and in a way that is relevant to your audience. One of the biggest issues that you will be asked about is the question of human rights. In particular, they will ask you about why has Israel built this wall or even apartheid wall? And second of all, what about the checkpoints where Palestinians have to wait for a long time to get into Israel? We would love to live in countries without fences, without walls, without checkpoints. It used to be that case. We built it because of what happened in the Second Intifada. Day after day, suicide bombers were coming into every major city in Israel and killing women, children and families on buses or eating in restaurants. The moment that Israel increased its security, those suicide attacks, those bombings stopped. The real problem is not fences and walls which can be brought down. The real problem is the Hamas and Fatah groups who are committed to murdering Israelis downtown Jerusalem and elsewhere. One of the biggest questions at the moment is, what about Israel's policy of building settlements in the West Bank? Isn't building settlements against the peace process? Isn't it opposing any plan for a Palestinian state? Perhaps you can agree that there is a discussion and a debate in Israel about those settlements, that many people in the Labour Party would disagree with it, that they represent a Zionist perspective which is legitimate. On the other hand, I think it's also important to bring out, too, that Israel has a right to build in the West Bank because there's a historic connection of the Jewish people that goes back thousands of years. At the same time, I think it's important to refer to what happened in Gaza. We have a situation where we did what they demanded. We left Gaza, we removed 10,000 people from their homes, and within a couple of years, we had rockets in every part of the state of Israel, from Haifa in the north to Mitzvah Ramon in the south. The real question is, are the settlements the block to peace, or is it the fact that Palestinians don't recognize Israel's right to be a Jewish state? One of the biggest claims you're going to get is what happened in Gaza? Why did Israel kill 2,000 people, over 500 children? The answer is simple. Israel did everything to stop the human tragedy that took place, dropping leaflets, phoning people, and warning before any military action. The truth, which you need to get across, is that Hamas used its own population as human sacrifices. What they did was criminal, a war crime. They put their own missiles in schools, hospitals, in UN buildings, and then fires at Israel. Despite Israel's attempts to minimize human casualties, the consequences were inevitable. Another big question that we face is, why does Israel restrict goods coming into Gaza? So the reality of the siege on Gaza is a myth. The restrictions that put in Gaza are only to prevent weapons coming in. Go to Gaza, you're going to see trucks of aid and food coming in. The only restrictions are there to check that there are missiles not coming in, rockets are not coming in from Iran. Aid, medicine and food are being delivered daily by Israel to help the Palestinians. One of the most craziest claims against Israel is that we're an apartheid state. It's ridiculous. If you go to Hebrew universities, there's Jews and Arabs studying together. If you go to the court system in Israel, we have Arab judges, we have Arab members of Knesset sitting next to Jewish members. I would argue, and I think you've got to pick up this point, that apartheid and its use of it against Israel delegitimizes the struggle of black South Africa for its own liberation of its own country. So remember the following. 1, know who your audience is. You're going to have to change the language that you use according to the audience. 2, have a message. What do you want to say? What's the message you want to get across? And say it in 30 seconds. Show empathy. Show an understanding that we would love to live in countries without fences, without walls, without checkpoints. If you have empathy, your message is going to be more effective. Talk about peace. Keep positive. Always look for the light at the end of a tunnel. If there's one thing I could really recommend to you, is learn more. I want you to go onto the internet and look, read, discover. Get as much information as you possibly can from all the different resources. And in one sentence, be prepared. That's the most powerful tool that you can have to be an ambassador for Israel.